before we went to break, we were talking about the idea of once we start to find maturity in our faith, and we start making decisions, life decisions like marriage, children, families, there's a level of growth that we have to have. And I think something more than anything else, there's a level of shall we say, well, yeah, personal reflection. And I think that that's where we grow. But Steve, before the break, we were talking about in the Byzantine and the Eastern Rite, you have the crowning, and one of the symbols of the crowning is dying to self, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned it was a crown of death. Is that pretty fair?
Yeah, that is fair. Yep.
And so
Yeah.
what does that mean, or what does that look like in a marriage, really, more than anything else? Because I want our male listeners especially to think about it. Sometimes we think we're going to get married. That means I'm going to have the house, I'm going to have the cars, I'm going to have the kids, and I'm going to have this, picturesque life, and it's going to be wonderful. But really, if we're all of a sudden you're like, wait, where does the death come in? What's that all about?
Yeah. And I think it's all wonderful and dying to self, where it's what I find and where I am in our marriage and in fatherhood, again, like it's, my kids are younger, but it's about the little things. It's about putting other people, your wife, your kids, their needs ahead of your own. And the little inconveniences that happen, dying to that, and it's not about you. So, for one example, last night at dinner, my son, who is almost 2, he had like a fork he wanted to use, and he's like, wash it because it's dirty, because I think his sister used it. And we just sat down for dinner. I'm hungry. I was like, I just want to eat my food. And so I was like, listen, I'm just going to get you another fork because, I don't want to wash right now. Just like, get you another fork, right. Solve the problem. And I want to eat some food because I'm hungry. It's like, let's just do that. But then that created this whole thing. And he's like, no, like I put the fork in the sink and got a new fork. Then he's like, no. So he's getting upset. And then my wife is like, you have to choose your battles. And like, is it worth, the inconvenience of you washing the fork so he has it? Or do you want him to kind of have a meltdown because that's where he is? And so it's like, that's a little example of inconvenience to me, because I'm like, I just want to eat my food. I want to sit down, relax. And I don't want to have to just get up because I'm about to take another bite of food and get up and wash a fork, because I could easily grab a clean fork and put it there. But he wanted this fork. And it's like it's all the little things. And that's where holiness is. And that's where love is. It's like the little things that you do for your wife, for your kids, that to me, I feel like are the hardest.
Tell me this though, at this point, like, you're already battling with a kid, and all of a sudden a wife pipes up. And your wife is wonderful. I'm not saying anything about your wife. I'm thinking my wife's wonderful too, by the way. But but I'm, as a guy, all of a sudden she pipes up and tells me that, and I was like, really?
Yeah. I mean, I at the moment I was like, I was not happy about it. I was like, it's like, yes, but I'm like, but I already started this battle. I was like, well, we started this. I'm like, we're going through it, but I'm like, all right. I eventually, like, I did wash the fork and I gave it to him, but I was, I wasn't 100% happy, but it kind of.
But hey, man, what's the deal? You're the head of your family. How come you didn't take it by the bull by the horn and say, hey, I'm the dad. I'm exactly. The man. And how dare you tell me what to do? I'm going to clean the fork, and this is the way it's going to be. And, why not have that conversation? What's up with that?
You could, or you could go down the route of humility or eventually get there of being like, what, I think you're right. And, I'm sorry, like I should have done it differently. And because you can go down that route of, I don't recommend it.
But that's very common. For us guys, it's a common reaction because, hey, am I not the head? Am I not in charge? And how dare you try to, as my wife, not submit to me and tell me you're the woman. And I hear these conversations all the time. And I mention this because whenever I'm talking to people in couples therapy or things like that, the man wants to be the man, as we say in society, and the woman gets frustrated. And so this is really where Catholicism, based on last week's show as well, what does this mean for us as Catholics? So we can say I'm Catholic. Yes, I follow the faith. That meant something deep for me. But now this is Catholicism in action. This is when we're at home. This is where we're Catholic. It's like we go to church to listen to the Word of God and receive the Eucharist and all that. But now we got a whole week to be Catholic. When we're at home, nobody sees these little things that are going on. How am I Catholic when my kids scream out the fork, my wife is telling me something and I'm feeling frustrated, but yet I'm the man of the house. So really, what does it mean to be the man of the house at that point from your perspective?
Well, it means to serve and to also listen. I mean, marriage is a partnership, and like, yes, as the man, as the husband, like I'm the leader, I'm the spiritual leader, all that kind of stuff. But still, it's like it's not a dictatorship. It's not a one-way street. Like we're partners, and in our, like in the crowning ceremony, like we've given the vow of obedience to each other. So it's not just the woman submitting, but I'm also, submitting. You'd have to look up the exact terminology, but it's like I'm laying down my life as Christ laid down his life for the church. So it's like
that's the death, right?
It's a death. So it's like
the crown of death.
Exactly. So it's in that situation, it's like, yeah, I'm there to serve. Like I'm not. It's also just not loving to be like, well, blah blah blah. We're gonna do it this way, and it's like, I mean, it's just not. It's not never going to work out like that.
Yeah.
And this, but I think it is, it's a death to self. And it's also, again, a partnership. Like we're in a marriage together, we're raising kids together. And I mean, we're bringing both of our intellect, our wisdom, our experience, our spirituality to the table together to create this family, to create this marriage. So, so it's like, not, and a lot of times it's back and forth, this kind of, as like my wife and I talk about it, like that's where we together figure out, kind of all the details. And again, like with this fork thing, it's like, I'm, in the moment I wasn't super happy, but I'm glad she pointed that out. Cause it's like, it's another reminder of like how to die to self, how to serve, how to love my kids as well. Yeah.
It's interesting because that's what I try to, whenever I'm in couples counseling, people talk or want to know about what Catholic marriage is about. And this whole, St. Paul is always kind of chastised because he said, women submit, be submissive to your husbands. But we always forget that part about, hey, you got to love your wives the way Christ loved the church, which means you got to be ready to be crucified for your family. Yeah. And what I try to remind people is that as a Catholic man, what it means to be the head of my family is not that I'm in charge. It means that I'm responsible. And that means I'm responsible for everybody's well-being. And so that means that I got to be ready to assess what does each person need right now? And am I providing an environment that they're going to be able to grow and love and feel loved? And that's really the responsibility we have, which is, and part of that death means I got to be ready to lower myself and listen to whatever my wife's going to tell me, assess the situation with my kid, and realize I'm not, just because I say something doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. And if I do say something, it better kind of be inspired by God. I better have had some prayer time or something, because I got to realize that my position of authority, if you will, or power is going to be very impactful to everybody else. So I better have some responsibility with that and make sure that whatever I say is going to be uplifting and not breaking the family apart. Because people can look around and go, why are so many families broken? And we got to ask ourselves, where's the dad? What happened there?
Yeah, I think it reminds me of something. So my daughter, her godfather is a Franciscan friar, the Renewal. And he said something to myself and my wife, Melissa, a bunch of times, and he's told it to other couples. And he's like, listen, if anything, the one thing that parents need to do is just love your kids. That will solve so many problems that people have later on down the road, especially fathers. He's like, I see problems that people have if the father didn't love their kids or didn't express his love for his kids or didn't look out for them and like stand up for them and teach them how to stand up for themselves. You can't, on this earth, in this earthly life, you can't ever replace a father with something else. You have spiritual fathers, you have friends, all these other good things that help, but you can never replace an earthly father. It's only in heaven where obviously that's fulfilled, but it's interesting because just the simple, like, there's so many things we think about for raising kids, but it's like, it comes down to the basics of just love your kids and make sure they know that you love them and say that you love them, that you're proud of them. And that will prevent a lot of stuff later down the road for them, and a lot of hurt, a lot of whatever it is. But it's like, just again, the basics of like, we just have to love our kids. So
it's funny you mentioned that, because I think in today's society, there's so much one, I think there's a lot of animosity towards anybody of the Christian faith, of the Catholic faith in particular. There's so many things going on. It's not hard. You read the news and you see that there's a lot of issues going on, political issues, social issues, and somehow people try to blame the church, diminish the church, or something along those lines. But at the same time, it's this interesting dichotomy, if you will. Faith seems to be under attack. Probably always. It's probably always been that way, but I notice it a lot more now. At the same time, society is screaming for, we want to feel loved and we don't feel included. And everybody wants to feel included in things and wants to be noticed and wants to be, probably noticed for our gifts. Social media is all about me. I got to post about me, and because why? How many friends? I have 5,000 friends, really. I mean, I don't know if you have 5,000 friends on social media, but it gives us this feeling. But you bring up a really good point. Do your children feel loved? And I think that's really what the faith teaches us. In order for my children to feel loved, I can't make it about me as a dad. I got to recognize and say, hey, I've got to die to myself here in this moment. It's not about my feeling good. There's a sacrifice that whether I feel good or not doesn't matter, because they need to feel loved right now. And I got to make that happen. Yeah. Would that be pretty fair?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. And I think and making sure you say it to them as well. And again, it's like for me, it's like all the little things throughout a normal day. It shows that you love them, and just kind of, again, putting them first. And I guess, for me, again, I just think of like, instead of taking that sip of coffee, be like, okay, let me get this for you. Let me do that. And, for whatever reason, it comes down to food and coffee, but it's just like,
that's where family life happens, right?
Exactly. But again, it's like the little inconveniences where it's like, okay, I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. We're going to do this. We're going to take care of this for you. Or just like, I need to respond to this email, but like, hey, it's after dinner. Like, let's sit down and read this book, or like, let's hang out together. So there's all these little things of just spending time, making sure they're seen, they're loved. And,
I think it comes down to, are we loved? Can we love each other? And until next week, what I want to say is, as Catholic men, let's give that Catholic love.